This is the January 2023 DVD developer update. As you can see here on the right side, there are a ton of additions that they have added. I don't think this is the biggest update we've ever gotten in DVD. I still think the 6.1.0 update was that, but I think it is the update that has added the most new features into the game. It's actually a very big update. So let's just hop into it. The first change they've added is the survivor activity HUD. They're going to be adding icons on the survivor HUDs for what action you're doing. And the actions that are covered by this are repairing a generator, opening an exit gate, healing, mending, and recovering, cleansing and blessing a totem, searching a chest, and killer specific actions like snapping out of it from a doctor, waking up a survivor with Freddy. So we're going to see all these actions in this little circle, and if there's no action, that means they're not doing anything. But as you can see here, Jeff has a little entity clause around his HUD. This also signifies whenever a survivor is in a chase. So no matter what, we're always going to know when a survivor is in a chase, not just the obsession. If you see someone that doesn't have a claw and they don't have an icon, that means they're literally doing nothing. With this new update, they're trying to buff solo queue to make it closer to Swifts, because you know, in a Swift you would have had all this information already in a call, but you didn't have that in solo queue. So just to bring the gap closer from solo queue to Swift, they've added this information, which is really helpful, and it's going to help you know what all the other survivors are doing without actually having to communicate to them. Oh yeah, that's another thing. There's also a buff to the killer side with this. Killers also get to see the entity clause of which survivor they're chasing, which makes it really useful. If you come up with like a Swift that are like 4 Fang Mins with 4 exact same outfits, it becomes pretty difficult to distinguish who you're actually chasing. Having the entity clause can be able to, like, you know exactly right when you get in a chase which one you're chasing. Actually, probably one of the more underrated changes to this update. They've also added a new health state for when survivors are being carried by the killer, just for the newcomers in the game, because originally it was just the same dying state, like they were marked as the red aura, so people can distinguish a downed dying state survivor that they can actually help versus someone who's getting carried by the killer and can't really do anything other than like flashlight save or take a protection hit. They've just added that to clear things up and make it easier for beginners. The second quality of life is updated wiggle mechanics, the one that we see right there. This has been on the beta for almost a year now. That was the first beta update, and since then 83% of DVD players have opted into this wiggle beta. DVD realized that it's time to officially implement it into the game and remove the old system of just wiggling back and forth. In this next update, it'll become official, but there are 3 changes that are coming to the skill checks that actually make it a little bit different. The first one is that before this update, when you hit a great skill check, like right here, it sped up the wiggle progress and made it so that if you hit a great skill check every time, you're able to shave off an entire second of the wiggle progress, which is actually really big. They decided to let go of this and make it so that if you hit a great skill check, the killer sways more aggressively. A great skill check will sway the killer an increased 20%, and a good skill check will bump the killer but 50% less than normal. Because great skill checks are less useful now than they used to be before, they've also increased the size of the great skill checks so they're easier to hit. The second addition they've added is a new sound for non-attebs. So if you've absolutely given up in the game and you're not doing skill checks, back then it gave you the failed skill check sound, which is like really stressful and really loud. So instead, if they see you're not trying the wiggles at all, it's just like a really quiet sound that's not as annoying. The third one is they've cleaned up the wiggle skill checks with DS. Back then, after the DS, the wiggle skill checks popped up immediately, but they gave a half a second buffer. Now I'm thinking about it, this is actually kind of a silent buff to boil over. If you hit great skill checks while you're getting carried with boil over, it makes it even more difficult for the killer because they sway even more by 20% on top of the boil over. So maybe this is actually a silent buff to boil over as well. The third change they made is they nerfed Nurse. Yes! Finally, they nerfed Nurse. This is actually a great nerf. Her blink M1s are now considered special attacks, kind of like Blight, where if you bump and then hit, it counts as a special attack, not an M1. So that means that perks like Starstruck, finally, no base gets Starstruck on Nurse. Yes! But it makes it so that like Starstruck and No End, they don't activate on a blink hit. No longer the days of Starstruck Nurse. Let's fucking go! Woo! They've also added a quality of life. You get a new sound cue whenever you're fully regenerated all of her blink charges, so that you know immediately that you have all her blinks. They've also reworked a ton of the add-ons, especially the blink range add-ons. They completely let go of that, which is amazing, and they instead replaced it with new features. Batman's Last Breath. Now if you hit a survivor, you get get the undetectable stats for 25 seconds, which is terrible compared to the distance was back then. And then Jenner's last breath also doesn't give distance anymore. It's actually a really interesting one. After you use all your blinks, you teleport back to the original position and immediately get back all of her blinks. And they've also done reworks to all of these add-ons to bring the weakest add-ons and the strongest add-ons closer together. So they probably buffed the weak add-ons and they've severely nerfed the strong add-ons like the distance ones. Survivor mains rejoice. Nurse is no longer insanely good. I still will say though, I think in the right hands, she still probably can be the best killer in the game. She's just not as formidable perk-wise. They also made some changes to the knight. They buffed him to encourage more use of the guards at long range. Anything outside of 10 meters in regards to the guards, no pun intended, has gotten better. If you send out an orb, the survivor can see the path that you draw, which is kind of easy to counter. If you continue that orb past 10 meters, the orb gradually gets less and less visible until you pass the 10 meter threshold, and it'll become completely invisible. You won't be able to see as a survivor the night orb after 10 meters. On top of that, if you do put an orb past 10 meters, I don't know how the math is gonna math out, but the knight's gonna gain the haste stats effect for a few seconds. With the longer the path, the longer the movement speed bonus will last, which will help the knight catch up to the survivors that are super far away. They're getting chased by the guards. The third thing they did, if you send out a guard past 10 meters, if the guard catches a survivor, the guard will begin chasing faster depending how far past the 10 meter range that guard is. Really confusing still, but it's exactly like the haste. The longer the path, the longer the movement speed, just past 10 meters. And the fourth thing they did, beyond promoting longer paths, they've also increased the instant generator regression that guards kick. Instead of 2.5 like a normal killer kick, they get 5%, which encourages you to kick gens using guards, unless you have gen kick perks like eruption, because guards still don't activate them. And then they've added one nerf. It's a nerf, but it's also a bug fix at the same time. They made it so that you can't permanently stay in your guard summoning phase. Like you could phase camp the hook and stay in the orb and not have a terror radius. You can't do that anymore. You have a 10-second max limit to the patrol path creation. You can no longer use make a choice as making it OP. 4 buffs to the knight and then 1 nerf. So he's definitely a little bit better now. And it makes it so that he's really strong mid loop to use guards close range. And now he's even better at using guards long range. You can be a lot more creative in how you use your guards. They've also changed Eyrie of Crows, the map, and they've completely reworked it. A lot of people saw that it was survivor sided, and it kind of obviously was. So they wanted to try and balance it out to make it a little bit more killer sided and more fair. So what they've done is that they've made the map smaller, and instead of being in a rectangle shape, it's in a square shape. Something not a square. This is my best rendition of a square, but anyways, they've put the stronger maze tiles that were near the main building and they put them further out of the map, not near the main building, because they were really easily chained together, which made the center of the map really strong. And they've also added new maze tiles, like this one in this picture right here, which definitely doesn't look as strong, but they've added more foliage with these new tiles so that if you're a killer like Trapper, you can hide your traps better and like the grass and stuff like that. There's a lot more objects that you can hide behind, which is actually kind of useful for the survivors as well. I think this is a good update though, because honestly, I hate Eyrie of Crows even as a survivor, but I think this will make it interesting, I guess. This is probably, I think, my favorite quality of life change this update. They've added an in-game challenge tracker. When you're in a game and you're trying to do a challenge, like, oh, I needed 4 totems this match. How many did I get? I don't remember. Well, now they're going to tell you automatically. You're going to be able to see it right here on the left side. Whenever you complete part of your challenge, you'll see the marker go up. You won't have to keep track in your head and try and memorize what you've done in your challenge. You'll see it automatically. If you don't like that, you can always toggle it off in the settings. So this is just an amazing quality of life change. Speaking of challenges and making them better, they've also added a few game flow improvements that when you queue up for a match, you're also able to check the store and also pick challenges and go through the archives. You can see it right here in this picture. This person is looking for the match as the nurse, but they're in the challenge screen, so they can still pick challenges and stuff like that. It makes it so that like, oh shit, I forgot a challenge. Well, you don't have to back out every single time. You're gonna be able to do it automatically, which is really, really useful. And another really nice thing about this too is that if you're queuing up for killer, you're also able to go onto your other killers and customize their things that you want to do. The killer you queue up with is the killer you'll be when the match loads in. So say for example, you queue up as the nurse, you can go to all the other killers and change their perks up or whatever, but when you load into the game, you're still gonna be the nurse. So it makes it so you have a lot more freedom for what you can customize. You're gonna be able to do all the things that you want to do while still being able to queue up, which is really, really nice. And another smaller thing they've done, they've changed how a merciless killer is rated, which will make killer adepts 10 times easier and 10 times more simple. Back then, merciless killer was linked to a double pip with the grade system, but this was often really inconsistent where you get a 4K, but you still didn't do enough in the game to get it. So say for example, as Myers, if you tombstone everybody in like 2 minutes, you wouldn't have got merciless because you didn't do enough gen patrol or whatever. So now they just made it super simple where your rating is by the number of kills. You get a 4K, it's merciless killer. 3 kills is ruthless, 1 to 2 kills is brutal, and 0 kills is the entity hungers. This is that you fucking suck. No, I'm kidding. It makes it a lot easier to get adepts, not only because it clears up the confusion of what you have to do to get a double pip, it's also that what you needed to get a double pip was harder the higher up in the grades you went. It makes it no matter what grade you're at, getting an adept will always be the same. It'll always be 4 kills. It won't be any harder or any easier depending on your grade. Good change. I might actually be able to finish my fucking killer adepts now. The long-awaited iridescent shard price update is here. They announced all the non-licensed outfits that are only purchasable by Oryx cells right now would get an iridescent shard price. They introduced phase 1 with this announcement, and they changed that with Trapper, Wraith, Billy, Nurse, Huntress, Doctor, Hag, Dwight, Claudette, Meg, Jake, Naya, and David. All of those characters, all of their original outfits have iridescent shard prices, but now in phase 2, it's coming in this update. The next characters would be the Clown, Spirit, Ace! Yes! Ace! Let's go! I can finally buy his outfits! Yes! Ace and Fang. And then last thing to cap it off, they just want to flex their numbers. They gave us an update on cheating with how many cheaters they banned in 2022 compared to all the other years. You can see it's skyrocketed up, and they have banned 64,601 cheaters this year. They're still working hard to try and patch new vulnerabilities, but it's nice they're being open and clear about stuff like this, which is really cool. And then they're closing this off by saying that the PTB is going to be going live Wednesday, January 4th. So those are all the changes with the update. This is a very awesome update. I'd say every single change in this update is fantastic. What a fantastic way to start off 2023, which is a fantastic developer update. Awesome. Love it.